might be a little counterintuitive. We might think of museums as kind of dusty analog spaces, but zooming out a little bit to look back at history, we can see that history has often been told using emerging technologies. So, for example, here's a picture of Robert Barker's Leicester Square panorama from the 1790s, an immersive 360-degree painted space used to tell military history. We could also think about the use of the stereoscope from the mid-1800s to dazzle with 3D views of historic sites. And so you can see that the telling of history has a long tradition of engagement with emerging technologies. But in the more recent development of heritage applications with digital technologies, there's a history to trace there too, even though things are new. There's also a history of work with audio guides, interactive mapping, and immersive visualization. But I think what's a little bit different and interesting is the inclusion today of game technologies and mixed and augmented reality capabilities, which lead to, I think, even more complex or increasingly complex interactions between user, machine, designer, site, experience, and subject. So it's exciting, I think. The complexity can be represented in new ways due to this, through branching storylines, multiple or shifting perspectives, even procedurally generated narratives. So IN, interactive narrative, we'll just call it IN in the talk. IN technologies are yet another emergent component in the heritage sphere. We find them there too. Now, but at first glance, it might seem counterintuitive to include IN when you're telling history. After all, it can't change what happened in the past, right? So what role could IN possibly play? But when it's acknowledged that the act of storytelling of history itself, the act of narrativizing of history, is always already constructivist, and that's a necessary part of any museum or heritage experience, we can see that the storytelling of history has always been interactive. It's just that the interactivity has been reserved for the curator or the exhibit designer most often in the past, and now we can open that up to more people. And this, I think, does result in further layers of complexity yet to be fully understood regarding the roles of authorship or authorships in the new medium. So scholars such as Hartmut Kernitz have acknowledged the role of system-level architectures in IN authorship, and I was very excited, again, in the keynote this morning to hear a discussion about the interaction between systems and story and experience. And I think more work should be contributed in this area. It's a very promising area to help illuminate the embedded politics of the designs of IN systems. As Aaron was asking us, what kind of story can the system tell? There's a lot of assumptions in there and embedded values and politics. I think as IN technologies become more seamless and easier to use, a kind of double bind of that democratization is that the system architectures often become black boxed, or more black boxed to authors and users. So it's even maybe a little harder as the systems become more accessible to dig out what those embedded values are, what those politics are underneath. And while the claims for the impacts of IN in the heritage and museum sphere haven't yet solidified, there are some practitioners and scholars who place an emphasis on the promise of the medium to evoke empathy. We're all familiar with the VR empathy machine idea. And the idea there is the promise of the medium to evoke empathy as a tool for social justice. However, as Amy Schumann has noted, claims for empathy in non-interactive narratives are at best fraught, and at worst, entirely uncritical. So there's not a great foundation there. And the IN field is still in these early stages of grappling with the ethical implications of empathy claims for the medium, particularly the heritage field. There's some recent scholarship from Maria Engberg on the concept of care as a design approach, which is excellent, and also Joshua Fisher and Sarah Schruman's research on the ethics of IN and dark tourism. Those two papers really represent an important beginning, I think, for our field. So just thinking for a minute about non-interactive forms, okay? They already exhibit a complex relationship between the promises claimed for their narratives regarding empathy and justice and issues of power and entitlement in the manner of their telling. So just think for a minute about Hollywood films, okay? There's often discussions in the popular press about which performer is entitled to play a certain role, right? They may be cast to play a role representing someone who holds a marginalized identity, but the performer doesn't hold this social identity in their own life. As Peggy Phelan has reminded us, mere representation or increased visibility, it doesn't guarantee justice. That can be a trap, resulting in commodification and sublimation even. So in terms of the strategies of giving voice, which we hear often as kind of a buzzword, the practices of speaking for others, which there was another great example from the keynote about 80 days and that the Aboriginal woman's not going to let you tell her story. Linda Alcoff has provided an incisive analysis of these impulses to give voice or tell other people's stories as too often glory-seeking, exploitive, colonizing even, and she's instead urged a dialogic approach that seeks to open spaces for critique and push back against Western conceptions of complete individuality and total agency. So I think while the promise of empathy or justice as an outcome of narrative in general, and IM in particular, is really exciting, it must be tempered with careful and critical consideration and grounded in some of the great research that's already been done in non-interactive narrative around some of these issues. So, but thinking about IM specifically, I do think it may have, as a medium, qualities that allow for the possibility to contribute in this space in some ways that differ from less interactive narrative forms. So for example, one thing I'm particularly attracted to in the IM form is it is ontologically always incomplete, in a sense. So the narrative can be understood as mutable, and even if all the branches have actually been explored, this goes back to that framing thing that Aaron was reminding us about, the reader could have a model of the IM form as able to encompass or engender further possibilities. So in this way, the IM form could be understood as more mutable, or at least potentially mutable than traditional forms, and therefore always less complete. This always already incompleteness is a great step, I think, towards better representations of complexity, and may point a way toward a remedy for what Adriana Cabarrero has discussed as the human propensity to conceive of the self as unrelatable, which she says is a fictionalization or a streamlining of lived reality at best, and at worst, a reification of oppressive structures. But IM's incompleteness may also allow for a shift away from mythic Western notions of completeness. These ideas of completeness show up in concepts like self-reliance, individualism, and retreat away from dialogue into monologue. Francis Niamajo at DH 2019 this summer warned against completeness as, and I've got the quote up here, an illusion that can only unleash sterile ambitions of conquest and zero-sum games of superiority. So he is inviting scholars instead to embrace an ontology of incompleteness by more forcefully acknowledging borrowings, inspirations, collaborations, multiplicities, and fragments in our work. And that's something we're not always institutionally encouraged to do, right? It's actually a pretty subversive suggestion, and a good one, I think. Again, connecting in with Aaron's keynote, the anecdote he gave about Kate Compton's rejections from her system, where people said, that's not original enough. Well, we could think about, well, what's being valued there? In the context of IN and digital cultural heritage, I think this means acknowledging the messiness of the nature of this work and staying open to dialogic processes and criticisms that will inevitably arise. It also means tempering claims to correct or erase dominant histories in favor of aiming to kind of collectively contribute to the accretion of our collective understanding of our human history. So what I'm trying to do in this paper is add to this growing field of research in this design space and develop a range of methods and approaches for creating work in and with communities, particularly when the projects at hand concern difficult or contested histories. Nassim Parvin's recent paper is fantastic. I highly recommend this paper. It also provides a much-needed critical examination of the claims made for digital storytelling as a medium for justice. And it makes a similar call, as I am, to designers to recognize that what matters most, she says, is not giving voice, but rather a renewed attentiveness to the act of listening. And she invites us to reconsider the practices of storytelling and listening as dialogic. So listening, however, I want to point out, this doesn't erase the designer, right? This doesn't mean being silent. Listening is active and generative. So just as the theater actor can never fully disappear into the role, so too the designer is always present. And there is some design rhetoric from HCI that imply the designer becomes, or at least strives to become in some way, this neutral facilitator or pseudo-anthropological observer of the user. Think about the IDEO method cards, for example. They're filled with suggestions like shadowing and rapid ethnography that are actually suggesting this kind of invasive observation of users without any reflexive examination of the designer's own social and political positioning. So there's something disingenuous here, a lack of acknowledgement about the power relations between designer and user, and a disregard for the inevitable fingerprint of the designer. Okay. As Pablo Helber has pointed out, this stance of detachment can make communities feel like they're being used instead of like true partners in a dialogue or collaboration. If you're trying to kind of step back and keep yourself out of it, that can really backfire. And it's not possible. Also, it's just not possible. Indeed, Helbera continues this trait of genuine openness and curiosity to really engage with and learn from and bring oneself into community is likely a prerequisite for doing this kind of work successfully, and it can't really be created artificially. So just curiosity, he stresses, is not enough in terms of a strategy for successful community engagement. And he really emphasizes the delicate negotiation that is the nature of ongoing process of community-based work, or as he terms it, socially engaged art. So, okay, that is my frame. So acknowledging the delicate, messy, and incomplete nature of the work at hand, how to move forward with this theory in mind into practice and develop some works for IM and cultural heritage. So I'll share some lessons learned and some ideas towards an approach for doing this. So over the past 6 years, through a series of collaborations with over 45 undergraduate and graduate students of mine and a whole range of local and regional organizations, community members, and colleagues, I developed a course in augmented reality for cultural heritage, as well as a method for how to make these kinds of projects. So over time and iteration and making mistakes and learning, it's become clear that a deeply collaborative co-design process is an approach that best supports this kind of work for a variety of reasons. So first of all, ethically, all these tensions that are inherent in telling other people's stories are best navigated through a maximally transparent and collaborative process with all stakeholders. But practically too, just to ensure the uptake of whatever you're going to make, of course, this kind of work is a lot of effort, working at the beginning of a medium, right? To ensure that people actually want to use it, you really have to work with them as co-authors so they have ownership over the project, and they might actually have a genuine desire in pursuing it to completion and using it. I don't have time to get into the deeper structure of the course curriculum, but it's in the paper if you're interested. And here you can just see the range of clients the course has partnered with over the years. And I will just say as a backdrop, what the students can produce in one semester for the client is a functioning prototype to the level that's good enough to go on a grant application, and that's it. If the client is interested in bringing the project to completion, I work with them to find funding, and that would all happen after the end of the course. And students may continue to be involved for credit for independent studies or for pay if funding comes available, or both. So I just have time to share 2 of the projects here. The discussions of all 6 of the projects are in the paper. So first I'll share about the Rap Road album. So the Rap Road Family Album Project is actually an independent study with a student who was in the AR class and completed it and wanted to continue this kind of work. Kyle Riggs is his name. And fortunately, I had a client ready to go for him. Stephanie Woodard is the director of the Rap Road Historical Association, and she had heard about the AR class and had approached me some months prior, seeking a collaboration. So we had begun conversations beforehand, and then it just synced up nicely with Kyle's interest. So the Rap Road community is a group of African American families that came to upstate New York during the period of the Great Migration in the 1920s and 1930s, fleeing Mississippi due to increasing oppression and racial violence in that region. They came to Albany with very few material resources, and the community relied on the engineering, architectural, entrepreneurial, and agricultural knowledge of its members to build an entire neighborhood of homes from scratch by hand themselves, extensive gardens, and build a community smokehouse, start businesses, and thrive. And the community has continued to grow today, also preserving original family ties with the town of Shibuya, Mississippi, where they migrated from. And every year they have a massive family reunion with hundreds of people come up from Mississippi as well, all together in this neighborhood. So working with the community through a series of co-design workshops, this AR project was developed as an augmented book. The metaphor they were interested was really centering family, so the family album is how the project was conceptualized for use with phones and tablets. So it combines physical images in a literal family album with documentary footage and oral histories and additional photographic imagery and maps documenting the experience of the community through the years. And this album is used by the Rap Road Historical Association as a public education tool at their events in the region. You can see it in action a little bit in the lower right-hand corner there. And then one more project I'll share about is called Discover Cohoes, and it's still in progress. So it was developed to the prototype level for the city of Cohoes, which is a small municipality close to our campus. the town leadership had put out a call. They wanted some kind of interesting technological engagement with a mural they wanted to commission for the town to celebrate its industrial, 19th century industrial heyday. So we responded to the call, and they accepted us into collaboration with the class. So see, in both of these cases, the community came to us. So we didn't just sort of think, we have identified a community, we want to say they need augmented reality, go to them. They have come to us and we've begun a conversation. So through our own research in the class, as well as workshops with the community center in the town and the middle school, we discovered that what the client wanted, City Hall, this history about 19th century industry in the town, everybody already knew that story. But what they didn't know much about was the rich Native American history prior to the town's establishment. So the town has a massive waterfall, Cohoes Falls. It's second only to Niagara Falls in size in New York State. And the falls are often highlighted by the town for their hydropower role in industrial history, of course. But this waterfall is the site of the Iroquois Confederacy. So the Confederacy, which still persists, brought together 6 previously warring Native American nations in 1722. The Confederacy was one of the first examples of participatory democracy and directly inspired Benjamin Franklin and others for the structure of the U.S. Constitution. Middle school social studies teachers were collaborated with. They were very eager to bring this history into the classroom, even though it wasn't available in the Common Core state curriculum. And so this AR application was seen as a kind of low-cost field trip locally. So we used grant funding. We hired a local expert, Kate Olin, who is a member of the Mohawk Nation and storyteller, and also a retired school teacher. And so she worked as a consultant with us and taught us and provided feedback both to the artist developing the mural, Professor Ken Ragsdale, also at RPI, and us, so that Native American history and iconography could be incorporated in meaningful, appropriate, and respectful ways, both in the mural and the AR application. So, excuse me, the city has expressed interest in pursuing the project to completion. They've had a big leadership change. Excuse me. And they're currently working to implement the physical component of the project, the mural, which the AR application is designed to interact with, so we'll see. Okay, so just to wrap up, how to do some of this work on a concrete kind of nuts and bolts level. Here are a few strategies that have been useful. So first, you've got to develop your community partners way before the course. And that involves intensive networking on your own, actually going to local museum and heritage sites and events, going to regional conferences, inviting press to cover initial work, to get the word out, to meet more potential contacts. You've got to create a kind of global course structure that works globally for everybody. So for the stakeholders, the students, the community partners, and the faculty member, implement a co-design process or participatory design process. You don't kind of show up with the idea for the project. You show up with some questions and some tools that can facilitate collaborative brainstorming. And you share something with the community. So in our case, we're teaching community members what AR is and how to use it. So they lead the experience not only with contributing to the experience we design, but other things too. And make time for formal reflection throughout the process, because it's rocky and things may not go well. You might have to really change course. Use digital tools for project management, otherwise it's a total mess. So get on Slack with your students. Over the course of the semester, though, the faculty members should really fade into the background. I find when my students can run the community workshop, when my students can demo to the client without me taking the lead, that's when we've succeeded. Got to be prepared to be in for the long haul if the community member wants to continue well beyond the semester, so don't just disappear. That may mean that actually multi-semester course structures are ideal if that's possible. And I recommend pairing skill building assignments like how to make AR with critical readings and around critical approaches to history and co-design. So students are constantly moving back and forth between these two ways of thinking and integrating them. And I found it really helpful to teach to an interdisciplinary one-room schoolhouse with students of all levels, graduate and undergraduate from all different programs, all working together in one large team. It seems to really facilitate peer learning and maximize serendipity. So this is the last slide. Moving from the practical to the more conceptual, this is the basic process no matter who we're working with. It starts in the middle there with these pre-project meetings before the semester. And what's important about the process here, you see there's a lot of talking to people, listening to people, and going back again and again and again. And it really honors the incompleteness that Francis Ann and Joe has discussed. Nobody knows everything, okay? So even the client might not know. Like in Cohoes, they thought the most interesting thing about their town was a factory. So the process includes talking with, listening to, and co-creating with many different stakeholders. plus research on your own. And we accept in this process the designer cannot be invisible. We cannot escape our own positionality, so we dive right in, being open about that and honest about that. And what that looks like in particular is different from project to project and community to community, but it involves some introspection for the designer around issues of power, labor, and risk, thinking about who will gain what from the process, from the product, and who is asked to contribute and in what manner, and what are the risks. Also, are you truly open to dialogue, critique, and change, not just for your project, but for yourself? So it's really a wild and messy ride, and surely the methods and approaches I'm presenting to you are incomplete. I'm very grateful for the generative feedback from the reviewers. One reviewer said nothing in this paper is original. So I said, yes, that's right. I'm building on other things. I'm trying to synthesize them. But what I hope this is a contribution that reaches out and invites you in to try this kind of approach if you aren't knee-deep in it already. Thank you.